to right or right to left. There's no specific order. And typically I just start at this end of the table, and Adam usually starts first because this is Adam's favorite seat. And we all get along here very, very well. Honestly, we've been doing this a lot of years. And so, again, welcome on behalf of the Fort Scott Area Chamber of Commerce. And actually, the first person on the piece of paper here, their name is Trevor Jacobs, so I'm going to go with Trevor to open up.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for your support. I'm our 4th District representative, and the committees that I'm on are Fed and State, Transportation, and Ag. I guess I'll go for any questions.
Thank you. Next on my list was Adam, so we'll go to Richard.
I don't know that my voice will carry as much as Representative Jacobs, so I'll use the microphone if that is okay, so everybody can hear me. My name is Richard Hildebrand. I am the District 13 Senator. So I'm Fort Scott South and over to Chautauqua and Labette County. So I go all the way to Oklahoma line. I am currently serving on Public Health and Welfare, Transportation, and Fed and State on the Senate side. And I also am on an interim committee, the Bob Bethel Cane Care Oversight Committee. So, I just want to thank Mark for being the MC, moderating, Lindsay, the Chamber, and Mercy, all of you guys coming out. I can tell you this has probably been my 5th one here, and this is the largest crowd that I've been in attendance with. So thank you very much for showing up.
Thank you. Isn't that a great thing, though? I'm sorry, I failed to do this. So again, my fault here. You know, on the back there's a contact information for each one of our legislators that are up here today, and it also has the Fort Scott Area Chamber of Commerce contact, because they are a major contact for anything, honestly, and everything that goes on in and around Fort Scott and Bourbon County. They can connect you. They can provide you with information. Lindsay does a fantastic job over there. She's worked hard for a lot of years. And she makes this thing and many other things go well. They work collaboratively with the city and the county and help things work smoothly. So, and then this event is sponsored by Mercy, Landmark, the Landmark National Bank, the City of Fort Scott, and McDonald's. I don't have to pay $1 for that. Caryn.
Well, good morning, everybody. It is great to see you out here, and thank you very much to our sponsors. I know it's not easy putting these things together, but they are very, very beneficial, not only for you, but also for us to hear your concerns and your comments so that we can better represent you in Topeka. I currently serve on the Tax Committee, and quite a coincidence, but I serve with Richard on Transportation and Fed and State also. I used to serve on the Agriculture Committee, and I went to leadership and asked them if I could be moved to Transportation for 2 reasons. One, we need to expose some of our urban friends to our agriculture and rural Kansas issues, but the main reason was transportation. It's so critical for this area and for southeast Kansas. We've got 2 highways that go through here, 69 and 169, that need work. We need 68, and we have another highway at 99. Those are the 4 major highways that we're looking at trying to finish, complete, repair. And so I thought we'd do better with numbers. So with Richard and myself on the Senate Tax Committee, we have a stronger voice in Topeka. Also, I sit on the ACIT Joint Information Technology. Most of you know I'm a software engineer. This is the first year they've let me be on that committee, and now I know why. It's because they have somebody that realizes all the issues that we have with technology at the state level, all the money that we are wasting at the state level. There was a reason they kept me off of it. I'm also on rules and regs. For those of you that don't know, the rules and regs are bureaucrats or administration. They can write what's equal to legislation. It has the rule of law. And they do this at the federal level and the state level. And they write the rules and regs so that we have to be compliant. And on that committee, what happens is they have to bring each rule and reg before the committee so we know about it, but we can't do anything about it unless we introduce legislation, and that's only during session. So it makes the agencies and departments very powerful because they can write law, and it does impact our lives. All we have to do is talk to the people that run daycares. We've seen what they've done with the rules and regs, and they're destroying our small businesses in some capacities. I'll talk a little bit. I'm the tax chairman in the Senate. We've had some interesting discussions this year. I opened up the committee with informational briefings, and what we did was we took a deep dive into property tax. We had BOTA, Board of Tax Appeals, we had constituents, we had PBD department, we had revenue, we had all these different aspects of property tax come, and the appraisers, the county appraisers came in and all testified as to their role in the process. Well, the last week we had testimony from big box stores, and it was interesting because all of a sudden the counties and the appraisers and everybody was up in a roar and saying, well, why can't we respond to them? I said, well, you actually spoke before them. So it was intriguing, but we're going to let them respond. We had property tax increases over 100% in some scenarios. And I asked the Walmart business guys when they were testifying in front of me, I said, have you seen this in other states, or is this just Kansas? He said, no, we haven't seen this in other states, and we actually haven't seen it outside of Johnson County. Their property taxes went up millions of dollars based on what they have the potential to earn. So I could go on, but I'll look forward to your questions and what's on your minds as to what's going on in Topeka and how we can best represent you.
Okay, thank you very much. We have 4 questions that have been submitted to the chamber, actually 5. In education, gun control, economic development, marijuana, and transportation. So I'm going to read the first question, and then I'll take the next question from the audience. And this is addressed to all of the legislators. Now that former Governor Brownback's state tax cuts are in the process of being done away with, will higher education receive any of their funding that was previously cut? Who would like to go first? Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Mark. That's a great question as far as anything that we've had cut. Last year, though, unfortunately, with the budget that was passed, that was not addressed, along with some other issues that were addressed. And oddly enough, that was supposed to be a structurally fixed budget that was passed. It falls off the cliff in 2020. We're out of it's in the red again. This is after a $1.2 billion retroactive tax increase. It was supposed to do away with the sweeps from KDOT, but it increased 37.5% of what we were taking out in previous years are now being swept out of KDOT. And we're also deferring takers agreements out to 20 years. So until we get a grasp, get a handle on that, it's something we have to address, not only with the higher education, 4% cut, other areas that we cut as well. We've got to quit expanding what we're doing and retract and prioritize for us to address those things that we need to cut. Thank you.
I think my answer is just a little simple. I don't think we need to give more money to higher education. I think we need to focus on our roads, as we spoke about earlier this week at a county commissioner meeting. I think it's just a simple thought for me. No more expansion on the higher education.
Well, for years, we've been having this education battle with the budget. And I recommend that all of you, if you get a chance, go out to the state budget website. There's a pie chart, and it shows you how much of the state budget goes to education. And right now, it's over 60% of the state general fund goes to K through 12 and higher education. So what has gone on in the last few years, and it was interesting, the Speaker of the House was speaking a couple of days before me at another meeting, and he laid it out perfectly. He said that we have been depleting all of our other obligations for years now in order to uphold education. We've had 2 major tax increases. In 2015, we had, at the time, the largest tax increase in the state of Kansas, $400 million a year in sales tax. And then last year, we had a retroactive income tax that equated to $1.2 billion in 2 years. And we've already seen that we're collecting more than was estimated. So we have other obligations. Our prisons are falling down. The Osawatomie State Hospital has been neglected for years. In fact, I was up at a meeting there this week. It's come to a point that it's to our detriment. And it's hard to explain very shortly, but we have 40 state senators and 125 state reps. 40 senators, of those 20 are from the 5 largest counties in the state of Kansas. Of the 125 legislators, 25 of those touch Johnson County alone. So it's well over 50% of the state reps that are from the largest counties. Well, they have decided that they want mental health facilities in their areas. They don't. They can actually work together, which they're starting to do, to form a coalition to put 150 beds in Wichita, is what I've been told, and 100 beds in Johnson County, and none in Osawatomie. So our rural legislators need to work together, and I know I'm a little bit off topic for K through 12 funding, but I just want to demonstrate that we have let that hospital fail tremendously in the last years. Even though I've been fighting, we've got increases for salaries, it's better than it's been in the last few years. It's still not where it needs to be. So we need to pull together as a coalition and realize that we have obligations for education, but we also have other obligations for law enforcement, to take care of those that cannot help themselves. I mean, we need to have the tough conversation as a state and say, how much is enough for the schools? Can we do it better? Can we do it smarter? And I'll say my husband and I have done this ever since we got married. Is it a need or is it a want? And we're to that point where we need to ask ourselves, is this a need or is this something we want? And let's manage the state's money more frugally.
Okay, I have a gentleman over here that's going to ask our first question from the audience. And anybody, would you please state your name so everybody here knows who you are? Thank you.
Yes, my name is James Collins. House Bill 2738 is an abomination. It is the bill that lowers the consensual sex age to 11 years old. And it's in committee currently. Provided by some miracle that gets out of committee, I would like all of your assurances that you will vote absolutely no, that you'll look me in the eye and tell me right here in front of God and all these people that you will not vote yes for some terrible legislation such as that.
Well, I'll respond real quickly. I tend to look at miracles as positive. I don't think it would be a miracle if that makes it out of committee. I would not vote to support that bill.
There would absolutely be no way. I've already spoken with some of the individuals that serve on this committee, and they have assured me that this won't even get out of committee or even see daylight. I would even go even further than that, for me, on a personal level, that the age of consent is not an age. The age of consent, as God has ruled, is between a man and a woman after they've been married.
Absolutely not. I would not support that. And talking with the representatives that are on that committee, assured us that it's probably not going to see the light of day. Hopefully not. That just goes to show you, though, in the state, how some thought process work up there. We see these types of bills every day, and it's just mind-blowing. So to hear from you guys that, hey, they're fighting a good fight, really helps us and gives us that, hey, we're up there doing it. Even though we might not win every fight and every battle, but we have your support. We know we have your support in these areas. What really helps us out a lot, gives us a lot more encouragement as we're fighting that fight. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that question. I think this next question will be very much on point also. What are the governor and the legislature considering to do to improve school safety in the wake of what took place in Florida? Who would like to take that first?
Right now, I think there's some hall talk, and the hall talk would be that it allows teachers to, currently teachers can carry in Kansas, I think, if they choose to, if they're trained, but not on K through 12, just on college campus. But what the hall talk is to allow K through 12 or other teachers to take training in the state to pick up the tab on that. But there is hall talk about that. As far as, you know, that was a tragedy in Florida, absolutely a tragedy. But we keep, I asked my husband as soon as it happens, you know, the first thing we hear about is the guns. Let's take the guns away. It's not about the guns. It's about the individual mental health. And the other item is, in order to prove this point, when we see somebody drive a vehicle into a crowd to do harm, or we see somebody use a pressure cooker to make a bomb, we never talk about outlawing those items. So we need to really take a step back, and our mental health is so critical, and that is one of the battles that I would continue to fight. We need to address this, and we're seeing that impacting our schools, our law enforcement, our communities more than ever. So we just need to be proactive in our approaches and understand that it is a tool that is being misused, but outlawing it, the laws already exist.
Thank you. You know, I think back when I was a kid, I was going to high school, in the parking lot, every day, there were 30, 40 pickup trucks, depending on what hunting season it was. Either a 22 shotgun or a 30-30 in the back seat. Nobody used that. It goes back to our hearts. What's in our hearts? Over time, what's changed since I was in high school? We can talk about it all you want, but when we keep taking God out of the equation, our hearts harden, hatred fills our minds, and that's the root of the problem. Until us as a society decides, hey, let's get back and address this, no law is going to fix hate. Thank you.
Amen.
Our question was, what are the governor and legislators considering to improve, or how they are, our school safety in the wake of Florida? Well, there are these things called the 10 standards, not the 10 suggestions, they're called the 10 commandments. And now one of those things is called thou shalt not kill. We see that we live in a culture of death. Our children are entertained with this stuff every day. Every day. What goes into a person's eyes and into their minds, that's what's going to come out. Eventually, as it says, if it comes out of a man's mouth, it will overflow his heart. We need to address the root of the problem. One thing is that we had young people or people murdered at Florida. But every day, you don't hear an outcry, a national outcry, every day In abortion, there's a baby murdered every day. Every day. And then on top of that, not only one life is murdered every time, but possibly the woman's life. And then, in that case, there are mental issues of silent screams and regrets and shame. So, I understand that the left is against this, against guns, and against the Second Amendment, and our ability to protect ourselves, our homes, each other. But to address this, we need morality back in school.
Amen.
We need morality back in school. Ronald Reagan said that the revolution is at the family's table. We need family back again. We need a revolution of family. We need a revolution at our educational system. You know, I'm not against education. I'm not against schools. Obviously, I have kids that go to school. But I think we need to re-educate and go back to morality. Once morality is gone, everything's up in the air. I've mentioned this many times before. We live in if you're into the Bible, we live in this time called what is truth. Pontius Pilate said that to Christ. What is truth? Well, we need to get back to what is right and what is wrong and identify it and stand on it. I hope that answers your question.
Another question from the audience? Yes, ma'am. Can you bring the microphone over to you?
Pardon me, sir. Go.
Hi, I was privileged to be hired by Fort Scott Community College and get to come back to Fort Scott where I grew up and graduated. And we provide, the program that I work for is a federal grant, and that grant is on the chopping block in Trump's budget. And every day we work with students who are first generation college students who didn't have fathers, who come from broken homes. We've grown the program from 40 students to 167. These kids, if they didn't have us and didn't have the mental health services that we provide, would be back in environments that are not safe. They come from Chicago, from Houston, from Miami, where there are drive-by shootings every day. We make a difference every day, and with funding being cut at the federal level, funding being cut and not available at the state level, I'm concerned when over 70% of our kids are low income, what's the outlook for them? I understand that we need mental health and we need roads, but there's no future for these kids if we don't give them hope and we don't give them a future that includes education. For me, education is the way out of environments where they weren't taught morality. We're teaching that now through this program that could easily go away, and we don't see a lot of support for it. So the question is where is the priority for students and education? K through 12, I know that we were saying 60% of the budget is going there. Community colleges, we aren't seeing a lot of it, and we make such a difference every day. And these kids don't have other places to go. Is it a priority, and how does that fit into your priorities?
Thank you for the question. I just want to make sure I understand what the basic of the question was. Where are the priorities for the state as far as education? Is that what
For community colleges.
for community colleges? For the state? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but community college is supported by the community as far as taxes and levies and stuff like that, correct? So I don't know. I don't know of any talk. I apologize. Not been privy to any of those talks about higher ed. Maybe having a community college kind of up with like the Board of Regents. I know I have heard people out in the communities ask about that, but I have not heard anything at the state level that happens. I hope that answers your question.
I wish I had a professional question or answer on that one. I honestly do not. I guess I would need to talk to you more just on the department that you even work in or on in the first place. You know, where we've had, I think you mentioned, had 40 individuals and now it's up to 160 individuals. And I guess I don't know what all this program entails. And you said that it was a federal grant, so I'm not for sure. I can't answer your question.
Well, I felt like I'd been going first on every answer, so first off, it is a federal program, so we don't have any say over that. For those of you that don't know, I am running for U.S. Congress. I hope someday I do. But what's intriguing is if you look at the budget, and I say 60% over education, we have demonstrated that education is a priority. And what happens with the college funding is it's the block grant. I know that people didn't like the block grant when it came through K through 12, but I think a lot of superintendents have realized that it was a good thing. It allowed you to spend the money where you saw the priorities. So it's local decisions. The money comes locally, and the locals decide where their priorities are. I think the best decision with the funding, the more local the decision, the better. And so we have decided our priorities when over 60% of our budget is higher education. Over 50% is K through 12, and then the next factor is higher ed. So we have decided our priorities as a state.
Okay, our next question, okay. Thank you. Make sure you raise your hand high enough so I can see it, and I'll give you the microphone, and remember to give us your name.
Ron Brown. I represent the Conservation Districts of Kansas and the Local Food to Farm Task Force that I chaired a few years ago. Every January I spend some time in Topeka, and to this day I've never figured my way around in that Capitol building really good yet. And the way the room numbers are up there is very confusing. And I did visit with all of you except for Trevor this time, and we couldn't make connections. But I was having trouble finding Richard's office. I walked by it 2 or 3 times, and then I ran on to Caryn, and she led me up there. So we got it all took care of, and I thank you very much. But in that regard, I think they do appreciate us showing up there once in a while and visiting with them. And the reception is always wonderful. I can't say enough for them. And thank you all. But what I did want to say, and I'm sorry Adam's not here, but I believe the state general fund has been refunded back to the Kansas water plan. Is that correct? I think we've been arguing over that, and I've talked about it here for several years. About 9 years ago, the state cut the funding out of the water plan of $8 million, including $6 million from the general fund and $2 million from the water fund. And we've been fighting ever since to get that back in, because, like I said before, there's nothing more important than water quality and quantity in the state of Kansas. If we don't have adequate water and quality water here, everything else is going to be mute. We won't need anything. So keep that in mind. I've told these guys many times. I got dents in their desk up there where I've been pounding on them, and I think they got through, and we're proud that anyway we got that money back. A couple other comments I'd like to make while I'm here is I read a lot about the corporate chicken thing, and there's a little concern about the way they're kind of trying to set that up, in that maybe the state is going to be the one that decides on the chicken farms rather than county level, and there's a little concern about on CAFOs with the big feeding lots and like that, that's a county decision before it's actually adopted. And it appears that maybe they're trying to bypass that and just strictly have a state funding, a state operation on that. And I'm not sure about that. But back to the education thing, the Kansas Farm Bureau came out with an alert yesterday, and I cannot remember the House bill number, about a increase in property taxes for education. And they are deadly against that because agriculture is already supporting all the taxes they can do. With the farm economy being where it is, they cannot handle any more, and there's a deep concern with that. So with that, I'll be done. Thank you.
It's House Bill 2740. My husband was asked to write testimony against the bill. What it does is currently the K through 12 mill levy is at 20. You pay 20 of your mill, it gets sent to the state, so it looks like it's going to the state, but all of it, but a small percentage, around 1%, a little over, comes back to the local school. They're looking at raising that to 38 mil or 36 in the bill, I'm not sure. I've been told that they're just putting it out there to make sure that that legislators understand property tax is not the place to go for a tax increase. Like I said, we've been doing a deep dive on property tax, and it is staggering, some of the increases we've seen across the state, not just Johnson County, but locally. One of the state senators, his property was changed, and we have statute against this, so I'm not sure how it happened, but it was changed from agriculture to residential without anything changing. He's still farming the land. And so he's been contesting that. It just points out that we've got some issues. It's not pointing a finger at any one person in the process or any one people in the process. It's just that we need each of those functions to communicate so that we do have a better understanding of the tax burden that we are putting on our locals. I have a friend of ours that's helping with my campaign. He's a CPA. He said that he took every single receipt, every single dime that he paid in taxes, federal and state and local, and tallied it for a year. And this guy is very meticulous, so I know he did it. It totaled over 70% of his income. 70%. So I told a newspaper reporter about it, and they're going to run an article on it. And Tammy, if you want me to hook you up with him, I'll be glad to. This message needs to get out. We need to understand what percentage of our income we are paying into taxes, and what are we getting for it. Because you asked about those programs. If individuals have more money in their pocket, it is known that they will give, and they will choose where to provide their support for by donations. So we just need to look at what we're doing for a state. As far as the poultry operations, if you'll remember in 2013, there was a bill the administration wanted to push for COFOs or CAFOs, large animal operations, offshore companies, China, other countries coming in, buying up our land and having dairy, hog operations, whatever it may be. I fought that bill in committee with an amendment, and I used Farm Bureau language for the amendment. We ended up killing the bill, so nothing happened that year. Well, this year, I checked on the bill because that is a big concern of mine. I made sure that locals still have the option for zoning and still have the ultimate control. But you do need to get those controls into place so that if an operation does decide to come in, that you have your local rules and regs or zoning, whatever that local authority is, so that they decide whether they want the operation. To me, local communities should decide whether they want these large poultry operations. I'm sure you all heard about Tonganoxie, the no Tyson and Tongi. So Tyson Foods was going to come in, $160-some million operation. Poultry houses, the plant, everything. Tonganoxie, Leavenworth County decided that they did not want it. There was a large outcry, so the county commissioners voted it down. There were going to be some tax incentives. That's how the commissioners came into it. So there are checks and balances that are local, and you can keep those in place. Now, on the flip side, Montgomery County, we were in a parade down there. I always, there's great reception. You guys know how good you are with the parades. It's always fun to be here with the parade. Well, Montgomery County, they were cheering and yelling and running out and they thought I was Tyson Foods coming to tell them. So some communities do want the plan.
Down there anyway.
We need a little levity here, thank you. Richard?
She was throwing out chicken nuggets and stuff.
Thank you, that was nice.
Ron, thank you for the
Available
question.
where?
That's a dollar.
Okay, all right. Who's keeping track of that?
Ron, I apologize, I forgot what your question was now. No, getting back to your initial, you had a couple of questions in there, but number one is the poultry. The way that there was no existing statute that addressed the poultry, so this statute put this in place so that they can have the same rights as someone that had a cattle farm or swine farm or any sheep or anything like that. It's still kept local control for the counties and the cities so that they have the ultimate say on what to do. But I do want to go back and touch a little bit more on what you were talking about on your property tax part. And this is a big issue across our state on just about any level that we see. And this is my biggest problem with the Supreme Court coming over into the legislator's role in the education, is they're looking at one single focus, K through 12 education. That is not the only thing as a legislator that we have to worry about year in and year out. We have our mental health, we have roads, we have the most vulnerable that live among us, which are our elderly that are needing to get into homes that they can't because the waiting list is too long. Those with disabilities have a waiting list of 37, I think the last count was 3,700 to get into it. So as legislators, we have to look at the whole picture. And what's gotten the state of Kansas in the shape where we're at right now is too many times we're single issue focused. This is what we're going to focus on, this is what we've got to do, and we don't worry about the whole picture. And part of that whole picture is property taxes. Bourbon County knows the cost of property tax. They don't need the state to come in and say, hey, you're going to raise 20 more mills because we need to do this. How is that going to affect the local economy? How, when I started becoming a senator, I went around and talked to some businesses and asked them what were some of the concerns that they had. And I remember talking to an individual that told me that had a business in Kansas and a business in Missouri, two identical buildings. Kansas, he's paying almost $40,000 a year, and in Missouri, it's almost $17,000 a year. The next question on the list is economic. What we're going to do as a state for economic growth, economic development. Probably number one is we need to reassess where we're sitting and understand that we are in direct competition with our neighbors to the east and our neighbors to the south. The majority of our population lives both within an hour of the border. So I think we need to keep that in mind as we go forward. So thank you.
Trevor?
I don't know if there's anything else to say. But last night, believe it or not, it's hard for me to sleep when I have something like this going on. So I got up about 3 o'clock this morning and checked my emails, but I usually turn off my phone because I think both of these individuals can contest that these things never showed up at all. So, and I was receiving emails yesterday all day long about, I can't quite remember what word it was discussed, about the income tax, or the property tax, and this young lady had emailed me this, and I think this is a good one. It says, as a retired farm wife in the district, I'm hoping that you will vote against any bills that will raise property tax to finance schools across the board. Property taxes are so unfair to farmers, and especially to retired farmers. All too often, ag landowners are penalized for investing in land. While people working a 9-to-5 job invest in a 401k, farmers invest in the land. Farmers pay property tax year after year after year on quote-unquote retirement investments, while the 9 to 5 workers aren't asked or expected to pay taxes in their 401k. As retired farmers, it is becoming almost impossible to meet our county property tax obligation. I'm sure you are following the dropping farm income tax or income reports. We're all losing money, and that's the truth if you're in that business. It says, as a state, if we must look to property tax as a tool for school financing, I feel that it's time to raise the tax rates on homes rather than land. A farmer at 9 to 5 workers would be getting the same hit. All too often, the town and the city voters pass bond issues that we as landowners have to pay the majority of the cost. Easy for people to say this bond will only cost you $50 on your $60,000 house. Well and good, but the same issue will cost your farmer friend $1,500. Hope you see my point, consider blah, blah, blah. And I guess in the long of it, I'm not in at all, as I even said 2 years ago, and now even stand before you. I'm not into raising taxes. For myself personally, and this is just a part-time position that I'm in, but in my real job, in my real life, we're going day by day, just like everybody else. I'm not a millionaire. And the taxes are crazy. Whether it's on the state level, the county level, they're killing us. I had an individual call me up a few days ago, and I'm standing there in my kitchen, and there would have been no way I would have put that phone on speaker to have my family listen to the conversation. And I literally had to go outside. And I had to remind the individual that there is this thing of separation of powers. That sometimes I understand frustrations and county this and whatever else. But I'm here to stand before you. Again, I will not raise taxes. I'm not into it. I have to pay those taxes. And I'm poor. So, hallelujah.
Except for him being poor. Thank you. Okay, yes. Let me get the microphone over to you.
Okay, I'm okay. Don't forget to state your name.
Okay. I'm Clint Walker. This is a three-part deal. One thing, when you talk about taxes, yeah, I know. I have a couple acres out there, and then I've got the farmland, 80-some acres, and my taxes on my couple acres, more than double, and then some. But there is mechanisms in our county, and as a matter of fact, this week I had the county assessor come out again. I don't know why, because the big guy was out there 2 months ago. But they did work with me, and am I satisfied with what I'm paying? No. But it did go down. My farmland did not go up that much, and I'm happy with that. But the two questions that really near to my heart has to do with CanCare and DCF. And I understand, I've read all the way through CanCare. They spent $30 million for some computer program. Our legislators did that. The idea was good, one-stop shopping, but the company they hired, 5 other states, they were a failure. They didn't do their homework. And now they're talking about another computer program. CanCare's broke. That's a fact. The company they've got has been in there since 2015 is not responsible. We have people out here that need to go to an assisted care facility, cannot get into an assisted care facility, and older folks are not able to go through the maze to get there. CanCare broke.
Okay, so that's question one. What's question two?
DCF broke. What do y'all want to do about it?
All right.
Thank you. Who wants to take that first?
Ladies first. You know, the funny thing is, I don't mind going first, but my husband always told me after we leave the coffee, he says, share the mic, Karen, share the mic. So I'm sharing the mic, but I just know a lot about this stuff. I care so much about it, and I care about what's going on at the state. And I will tell you, the legislators did not decide on that software program. The legislators did not decide on the company that is writing it. That was the administration. In fact, I'll take it a step further. the legislature did not decide on canned care. Canned care was an idea by the past administration pushed onto the state of Kansas without legislative approval, without legislation. It was the governor that decided to implement a canned care program. Because the first year that they brought that to us, I was a state representative and I had 3 questions for them. First off, it's going to be bid out to the largest company. Are any Kansas companies bidding on it? The answer was no. Second off, why are we creating a middle layer of, we've got the government now, we've got a contractor, and we've got the individuals that need the resources. And the middle layer, and I get contracting, I understand that, but the middle layer is in it to make a profit. So we have to make sure that our contracts are understood when we're managing canned care. So basically this program has been through the administration. And we have had some fallout as legislators. We have tried to put in an oversight committee. We have done a few things for checks and balances. In some ways it's working, but in a lot of ways it's not. We've had a couple of businesses here in Fort Scott that have had problems being reimbursed by canned care. We've had individuals that are having problems with canned care. You know, I get so many calls as a legislator as to help me with this, help guide me through the bureaucracy of canned care. So it's not a perfect system, and they have spent a lot of money on it. I don't see it going away anytime soon. DCF, there are a lot of problems in DCF. We do have a new secretary with the new governor. I'm hoping that some of these issues can be taken care of. I had extreme issue with DCF. I got on an amendment, 2 amendments. One of them was when we file in Kansas for aid, for welfare benefits, that we do an electronic check to make sure the person is who they say they are. Because fraud and abuse is one of the biggest things with those problems. It would save the state money, it would be more efficient, and we'd make sure that the benefit is getting where it needs to. Simple amendment, went on, voted on 2 or 3 times, both chambers passed, never implemented. So we just, you know, as legislators, we can push and push and push, which we do. We're a part-time legislature and we do fight hard for you. I know I do. But sometimes we're up against a mountain and we've got to move a rock at a time. But I will continue to move those rocks and fight for this, fight for us, and fight for Kansas.
Thank you for the question. And obviously, canned care and DCF is something that's very important to our state. As far as canned care goes and the software, Senator Tyson was correct. I mean, I'll give you an example of something that just came through the Senate side of how things work on agencies. Our ABC director was in. They had a bill to increase fees to convenience stores and stuff like that for liquor to pay for their software that they purchased 42 months ago. Because when they did all of the bidding and all the letting on the software, they did not take into consideration the maintenance costs every year after. So all they budgeted for was the initial cost. So then, every year, thousands of dollars to maintain that system, they did not budget for. So now they have to come back and raise fees, and those fees ultimately are paid by the citizens. So that is a typical way that the state and agencies will do their software. Quite honest, that's from my experience, my little experience up there, that's the way they do a lot of everything. But getting back to DCF, or canned care, my understanding is, you know, we had 2.0. It was supposed to be coming up to try to fix a lot of the canned care issues that we're having at this time. That has been shelved, and looks like they're going to do a 3-year extension on the current canned care system. So instead of fixing it, we're going to extend it for 3 years and then try to fix it in 3 years after that. So Thank you for your question.
Trevor, do you want to, or you want me to go on? Okay, let's, Adam's here, let's have him introduce himself, and Adam, so if you indicate what committees you serve on, and if you want to give us a brief overview, you can. I will tell you the other three legislators took about 20 seconds on their overview. Whatever you want to do is fine.
I've already showed up late, so I won't take any more of your time, but I am Adam Luster, and I apologize for being late for whatever reason. I thought this was going to be a 10 o'clock event, so I thought I was early, and I actually was sitting upstairs waiting, not for an hour. I'm Adam Luster, I'm from Frontenac, Kansas. I serve the 2nd District, which is in regard to Bourbon County, it's the western fourth of Bourbon County, about a third of Allen, half of Neosho, and all of Crawford except for Pittsburgh. I serve on transportation, agriculture. I'm the ranking minority member on transportation. I serve on agriculture and energy and utilities. So we've talked a lot about broadband this year, utilities, a lot about everything in agriculture and transportation. We're just trying to keep our head above water right now and try to look forward to hopefully restoring some funding and looking for our next project. As far as an overview, I don't know what you were just talking about can care.
That was a question that was brought up by this gentleman.
Okay. I think everyone said it is problematic. We went from SRS to DCF and privatized some of our social service healthcare stuff. There's 3 MCOs that work as a clearinghouse and even their insurance companies. So there's some difficulties there with some private funding and some profit taking and trying to reduce the number of people that they help and trying to reduce their burden. They may not act in the best interest of themselves, or they may act in the best interest of themselves and not the people they serve, which are less fortunate sometimes. So that's problematic. Did you talk about that? It was all DCF, but there's quite a bit of trouble in that area. You're dealing with problematic folks oftentimes, you know, the children that parents that don't want them, and they're put in a system. I don't know if you were talking about that. That's a tough situation to begin with, and we haven't done a very good job dealing with that as a state. But hopefully, I think these folks did mention that we do have a new governor, and we do have a new lieutenant governor too. I don't know if anybody knows his name. His name's Tracy Mann from Salina. He was just appointed last week or the week before. But I've been in the legislature for 5 years, and the climate's been pretty rough all 5 years. As far as working with one another to make Kansas better, I think it's a new time, and I think the new Governor Carter, will work together. So I actually look forward to working with him, even if it's a short period of time, which hopefully we're only going to be in for another month or two. But we'll see what happens.
All right, thank you, Adam. Here's an easy, just leave that right there. Here's an easy issue question. Marijuana. Is there a bill being developed to decriminalize marijuana in the state of Kansas? Question 1. Part of the question 2, what are your thoughts on legislating recreational medicine use? And do you think the federal government, which none of us, do you think the federal government needs to take the lead in this effort? So, is anything going on in Kansas with legalizing marijuana? Recreational use or medical? Okay, Adam, you're up.
Thank you. I always like a good marijuana question. Fortunately, we did have these questions in advance, and to my knowledge, there's no legislation on either side about recreational marijuana legalizing or decriminalizing. I think there's some bills working out, but they have not worked through committees. So we also have some medical marijuana things that are being worked. None of my committees handle that, but we did have a CBD oil, which is for the treatment of epilepsy, and it was actually passed, I think, in the House last year and the year before, but it never did come to fruition. So we're along. That's CBD oil. That's extracting cannabis out of marijuana or wherever it derives from. It doesn't have THC, which is the stuff that gets you high. that's regulated. So they extract that, they give it to folks to treat them for epilepsy, and it lessens those burdens. We haven't even passed that. So I think in Kansas, we're a long way from legalizing both medicinal and recreational marijuana. I've always said all along, you know, we were an experiment ground on a tax plan. We don't need to be an experiment for everything. So there's several states that have passed recreational marijuana, and I think we should at least see what happens there before we jump into the fire, so to speak. And it's still against federal law. So the last question there is about should the federal need to take the lead on this effort? It is against federal law. So if if you're going to have a law in one state, it should align with another, and that's what federal law does. So yes, probably so. As far as the last part of that question.
There's always a bill on marijuana in the state. We have a state senator that is his goal in life, I think, is to pass marijuana laws in Kansas. So far, he has not been successful. I'll ask this crowd, how many of you think that we should legalize marijuana at the federal level? Okay, one or two.
Shoot the money, tax it, like we do cigarettes. It'll help.
So a couple of people think so.
It will help our taxes, yeah.
I think the majority of people are not in favor of it. In fact, we look to our neighbors to the west of us, Colorado, increased crime, increased issues, and I was talking to my husband about this yesterday too. We have passed so many laws for DUI, drunk driving, and we're looking at a law for against if you're eating in your car, sorry McDonald's, but that it would not allow any distracted driving at all. And so, and then on the flip side, we're looking and talking about legalizing marijuana. I think the big control, the issue is the dosage control. There's no way at this point to control the dosage. And so that's a major question. I did run into the Attorney General and was visiting with him a little bit about it. Kansas has lessened the laws or the penalties for marijuana in the last couple of years, but it is not legal, and it's not legal to use the oil yet either in Kansas. We did have a bill in the Senate. It was, I felt like it was a difficult vote. You wouldn't think that by the way the vote count went, but what it was hemp, industrial hemp. But what made it a difficult vote for me was, okay, we're going to put this product, it's an experimental product that we're going to put in Kansas. We're going to allow one county in the state to grow it, and if a farmer wants to grow it, he has to have an FBI check, a KBI check. I mean, so that's why it was a difficult vote for me, is if it's, if there's all these problems with the plant, why are we talking about this? But they used to use industrial hemp to make paper. There are a lot of benefits for it, and it could be a benefit for the state of Kansas, another product for our farmers, our rural Kansas. So I did vote for the bill. Excuse me, the bill passed with 3 no votes. So a majority of legislators agreed with how I voted. But it was an interesting debate for sure.
What county was that in?
Russell County.
Russell, okay.
And everybody's gonna flock there, whatever they do, burn off the stubs.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. I think as far as legalization in Kansas is concerned, it's already been answered. I would like to address the last part of that, and I am going to really be different than what Representative Lusker said. I don't want the federal government leading anything in Kansas, in the state. They have misconstrued the 10th Amendment tremendously. I think it's a state law, a state responsibility, local control. Federal, if we think the state of Kansas has made some bad decisions and not done a good job in a lot of the areas that we did, the federal government is a lot worse. So we don't need to take the lead from that. Let's do it our own selves. So thank you.
Thank you. Trevor? It's on now.
you probably know how I'm gonna answer this. But my family and I, Louisville, and we always go to Colorado for vacation. And years ago, before marijuana was legal in Colorado, we would go to Pikes Peak. And just 2 years ago, we went to Pikes Peak, and there's head shops, pawn shops, people literally passed out in the park, people bathing themselves in the fountain. I mean, it looked like something that you would watch on a grainy 70s movie from In the God of the Villa or something, I don't know, but I'm not in favor of legalizing marijuana. The crime rate has gone up. I served with an individual who's a police officer, a deputy, and I asked him yesterday if he would send me more information, because he too has a friend who serves in Colorado, and as I mentioned, the crime rate went up. And I don't know when it became safe to engulf smoke into your lungs. I don't know when it became safe to drive down the road high. I don't remember when it became safe or a cool thing for our kids to take some magic brownies or the devil's lettuce out of the cabinet and go to school high. So I'm not in favor of this stuff. Our kids, our communities, our society already has enough problems. We don't need to pour more problems onto the issue. So no, I will never be in favor of legalizing marijuana.
Next question is a transportation. Yes, ma'am, we're going to let you.
Thank you for raising your hand. Don't forget to state your name.
I'm Janet Cook. Back to what Richard was saying, I've gotten 2 emails in the last week urging me to contact you to vote against SCR 1611, states' rights. We had a program last summer that actually sounded pretty good. You know, your standard.
Are you referring to the Convention of States? I am probably in the minority in this thought that this is my thought behind it. We all know that the federal government is a wreck. We all know that it's a mess. Why has it become such a mess that it is, a train wreck that it is? We've allowed our Supreme Court to dictate to us to pass laws instead of interpreting laws. We've allowed them to legislate from the bench and tell us what our Constitution says. It doesn't say what they're, you've seen the connotation, it's probably this tall. That tells you the judges are passing legislation. The Constitution's only this thick. But take the environment that we live in today compared to back when James Madison was here. Who among us would be the next James Madison that would fight for your rights, would fight for the Constitution like they would? Or how many people today that you see want to take away our Second Amendment, want to do other things, want to change the Constitution by an amendment? You might be told that if you change the Constitution, you can't change the Constitution, all you can do is amend it. Well, amending the Constitution is changing the Constitution. So whenever you do that, you open that up for any amendment. And are we so sure in today's society and with the way our people that are representing us have our best interests and are going to fight like James Madison did? I'm not so sure of that, and I don't, at this time, I would not support that. Thank you.
Well, I'm with the senator on this also. I've had individuals email me, my friends, people who I request prayer from, but I don't trust a government that can't even align themselves. They have to debate what the First Amendment says. They believe that we have a right to dismember a baby in its mother's womb. I mean, and to open up and to believe the federal government or to believe government saying, you know, trust us with your rights, trust us with the Constitution. We have the 10th Amendment. We have the Bill of Rights. And name me one law that already they obey. And to put another law to say that they would obey, to play with this, there's no way. There's no way. Last year it went into Fed and state. We voted on it. I voted no on it. And I had individuals saying to me, Trevor, that was a no-brainer. That's an easy vote. That's your constituents. That's your base. I was like, man, I don't feel comfortable with messing with this. I don't trust anybody messing with this at all. So I have not been able to find anybody, though they beg and plead, they try to give me this and that. Believe it or not, I can listen to YouTube and Google stuff too. And when I see that people I don't associate with on the political scale also call for this, it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder, why would we dabble with this? We're called not even to dabble with the Word of God. And I'm not saying that this is the Word of God. Man, this is 56 signers signed their lives away for this. And as the senator had said, there's not another James Adam, Thomas Jefferson. There's not. So I am.
Well, I have a completely different approach. In fact, 2013, I was called by a gentleman from Fort Scott and asked me to look at a possible convention. It's a convention to amend. So, because I had the same thought that these gentlemen did. I thought, no way, that's just scary. So I started researching it. I started looking into it. And coincidentally, 2 weeks later, I get called by the Speaker Pro Tem from Ohio and asked me to serve on a national board of legislators, state legislators, to write rules in case a possible convention is ever called. So I got engaged with this because how else to better control or to understand by having rules that if there is ever a constitutional to amend. We keep calling it a constitutional convention. That's not what this is. It's a convention to amend the Constitution. How many women in this room? If we wouldn't have amended the original Constitution, women could not vote. It is not a perfect document. Granted, it is a beautiful document. It is a wonderful document, but it is not a perfect document. In fact, I give a speech to high school students on women's, and one of it is about one vote matters. One vote makes a difference. And there's a gentleman, a senator, state senator from Kentucky, or I think it was Kentucky or Tennessee, got a letter from his mother the night before he was to vote on the suffrage, the amendment for women's vote, because he was going to be a no, and his mom asked him to vote for it. So you may not be the person casting the vote, but you may have an influence on that vote. And that's how our government works. So to me, I get that it's scary. I absolutely get that. But we talk about balanced budget. Our spending is out of control. We are trillions of dollars in debt. We couldn't even pull this in overnight if we wanted to. But a balanced budget, that's one of the issues that both sides agree on. This group that I work with, extreme conservatives, extreme liberals, and in between, we had all sides of the spectrum working on these rules to try to put it together. The one topic that we could agree that there might be a convention on is a balanced budget amendment. I understand where they're coming from. It is scary, but let me throw the numbers at you. In order to have a convention in the first place, I forget, I think it's 34 states have to call for the convention. Right now, Kansas, how many of you realize that we actually have a resolution already that was passed in the 70s? We have several resolutions in the state of Kansas that call for a convention already. So this is not a new topic either. But what this push has been is there's nobody at the federal level counting these resolutions. There's a federal bill that would require these resolutions be counted and that it be public as to where we're at on the count of the resolutions for a convention. There's so much logistics to this. How would we select the delegates for a convention? Each state should decide that themselves. Indiana went as far to say if their delegates go out of bounds of what the convention is, they are federally prosecuted. I mean, that's very extreme. But each state must decide that. We are so far away from an actual convention. But we need to send a message to our federal legislators that we're serious about this. We're serious about wanting a balanced budget. We're serious about getting our federal government under control. We've all talked about and heard about draining the swamp. Well, me, as a state legislator, this is action that I can take to help drain that swamp, and I'm going to do it. So this is, I agree, I understand they have concern, but the last number I'll throw at you is it takes 38 states to ratify the Constitution. So whether this amendment originates with our Congress or originates from the states, that's the two ways that Article 5 says that an amendment can originate. It ends up the same. It still has to have 38 states to ratify that change. And I tell you, the women in the room, we would not be able to vote if we would not have amended our Constitution.
As far as convention states, so I think these folks have covered it. They covered it in two different ways. It is actual state people that come together, and like Caryn said, in delegations. So it's not necessarily the federal government. It's each individual state opening the Constitution. And once the Constitution is open, you can do multiple things. It could be open for one item, but if this convention would happen, we understand it. We can talk about a number of things. We could take away the women's right to vote if enough people have to. Correct. Exactly. You have to have a two-thirds majority of the states to get anything ratified. So I'm not a supporter of the Convention of States. I think it's taken our eye off the ball. We talked about the federal courts, the influx of money in politics is one of the reasons Washington, D.C. is so flawed. We do have three branches of government, thank goodness, that looks after one another, and if we didn't, the influence of money would probably control what happens even more. That's why the Supreme Court keeps us in check. But I would be opposed to the Convention of States. So, and as Caryn said, the Constitution has been amended almost 30 times, so it can be done. It's very difficult, and it's very difficult for a reason. So we'll see where it goes from here.
Hey, Dan, you have a question? Forget your name, please.
My name's Richard Hildebrand, and I just want to ask Adam. We had Pastor Collins ask the first question, and I would like him to ask that question, and you would get your answer. We had the answer from the other three, but you weren't here, so I would like to know your answer to his question.
Would you like to restate your question, please?
Do you support House Bill 2738, which is the bill that is in committee currently that lowers the consensual sex age to the age of 11 in the state of Kansas? No.
It's always good to get our elected officials on the record for any question.
Yeah, who wrote that bill?
So, I'm sorry?
Who wrote that bill?
Representative from
Boonheimer.
Lawrence.
Boonheimer from Lawrence County.
Okay. So our next question here is in regards to economic development, but I'm throwing transportation into there because we're getting close to the time. And I did indicate that afterwards these folks would be around for a little bit here. So we in Fort Scott, Bourbon County, and this southern area are still very concerned about Highway 69 completion to Pittsburgh and also all the way to I-44. So what do you individuals know about that and can tell us about how that's going to happen and when? And then what are the economic development goals for the state of Kansas and hopefully any actions for us here in Bourbon County? Who would like to take that first? Richard would.
Thank you for that
Let's
question.
start from south to north.
South to north, yes. As everybody knows, transportation is a very, very important part to our area in southeast Kansas. I know all my colleagues that are sitting here, and even some of in Topeka, have been advocating tirelessly, as well with some of the citizens, to our current governor, past governor, and our Secretary of KDOT. I feel very confident that they are aware of this and that they are making strides to do this. The last thing that I had heard was 2019. They are seriously looking at finishing from Fort Scott to Pittsburgh. So that is in their... I wouldn't celebrate yet until you actually see the birthday. But that's the talk, and that seems to be the mood, the general consensus of it. So hopefully that continues to go that way. You know, some little facts that I know myself and some of my other colleagues bring up is Pittsburgh State University is the only university in Kansas without a 4-lane highway. The only one. Did you know that if you took southeast Kansas and went 100 miles, the farther south you are, the population is just as great as if you went to the center of Kansas City and did 100 miles. But you know, we are not doing anything to get the population from the south up to the north come into Kansas. And that's something that we have to address as well. Going back to the economic, I mean, that's part of economic, but something, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, our state has to realize, and we have to start addressing this, that we are in direct competition with our neighbors. Just a few numbers that I'm going to give you. We already know about our high tax rate for our mill levies on property and farms and stuff like that. Our state sales tax, so whenever you go to the store to buy any commodity, no matter what it is, you're going to pay 6.5%. You go over 17 miles to the east, you're going to pay 4.23%. If you go south, you're paying 4.5%. Our food sales tax, so anytime you go to buy a loaf of bread, and this is very important in our area, especially with our poverty rate, we still pay 6.5% for food. Missouri, 1.23%. Oklahoma is 4.5%. They're still a lot better than what we are. Our motor fuel tax, we pay 25 cents on the gallon. Missouri, 17 cents. Oklahoma, 17 cents. Something else that really we have to pay attention of, and we really don't do a good job of explaining or letting the citizenry know, is our debt. You know what our debt per capita in the state of Kansas is? For each individual, our state is $1,270 for debt per capita. Missouri's is $596. Oklahoma is $568. So we have to get the understanding in our state that in order to give you guys, your community, the ability to do what you guys do best, because you guys have a great Chamber of Commerce, great activity. You guys have a lot of good things going on, but we've got to give you guys better tools, more tools to use, and better options. And so when you guys are recruiting businesses to come in, they can look at some of these numbers and say, hey, this is a good place to come because you guys are competing with your neighbors. Thank you.
I got my vote. Well, I wish I would have looked more at Richard's notes. Because I'm not trying to put myself down, but when it comes to this kind of stuff, it's a little above my head. Really, when I called the Department of Transportation, trying to get a little sneak peek to see if I could be the hero of the day to see what construction would be on Highway 69. He kind of did a little giggle and he said, well, that's up to you guys for the next 10 years. So I don't know what that meant, but hopefully, Lord willing, as Richard had said, or Senator Hildebrand had said, that Lord willing, it'll be next year. And I think that would be a great thing. So I'm going to pass it on. I'm not going to talk about some of the stuff I just don't know about.
Well, the nice thing was I was down in Pittsburgh about a month ago, and the new governor was there, and he announced Highway 69 will be completed. So we were very excited about that. I'm going to try to hold his feet to the fire. Yes, we were very excited about that. EcoDevo, he didn't give a timeline though. He just said, well, yeah. So one of the things that I am the tax chair, and I was the tax chair last year, that retroactive tax increase did not come out of our tax committee. There's people playing games with that and saying, well, SB 30 did pass out of your tax committee. Yes, it did, but when it passed out, it was an obscure bill that the Department of Revenue wanted. It was not a multi-billion-dollar tax increase. So I'm very conservative. I do not send one message and deliver another. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. And that's who I am. And I am a conservative legislator. My record shows it. That being said, EcoDevo, we have to be very cautious with those programs. As the good senator said, we do compete with our friends across the state. But we have a lot of programs in our state that they pick winners and losers. They decide who gets tax credits, who gets tax incentive, who doesn't. And I'm not saying do away with those programs, but what I am saying is understand those programs and know whether they're working or not. We have several programs with no oversight. We're one of the few states in the nation that do not have any oversight on these programs. I'm talking about STAR bonds, TIFs, all these other projects and incentives that we have for businesses. We need to understand as a state whether they're working or not. And so there's some legislation this year to do the deep dive on those and understand if we're getting our dollars worth, our money's worth. Like I said, I'm not saying do away with, but understand and know whether those incentives are working or not. I know they're being abused in Wyandotte County. We've got the Star Bonds project that started out as a NASCAR, great incentive, bringing new projects, new jobs. But the next thing you know, we've got theaters being built, we've got restaurants being built, we've got Cabela's, we've got car dealerships now, moving from Johnson County to Wyandotte County with Star Bonds. So the program's being abused. It's supposed to sunset this year. I'm not sure. I'm going to get one of the bills in the Senate Tax Committee, so we're going to take a close look at it and see what happens with the program. But as far as EcoDevo that helps this area, we did pass a bill in the Senate this year, and it seems like a small bill, but corporations and other taxing entities can expense their deductions. Right now, small businesses cannot. In 2011, we passed legislation that would allow them to do this, and in 2012, it was removed with the tax cuts. Well, in 2017, when the tax increases went into effect, the expensing for small businesses was left out. It does have about a $9 million fiscal note, but you and I know that we engineer people's behavior with their taxes. If they know they're going to get a tax deduction or a tax write-off, a lot of times they'll make the purchase to get that deduction. So this is a good thing to help stimulate the economy. They tried to kill the bill. They tried to do a motion to amend and send it back. We debated it for a long length of time. What was funny was everyone that argued against it, almost everyone ended up voting for it. The final vote was 31-8. So they know it's a good bill, and they know that small businesses need those incentives too.
I think the original question was about 69 highway, is that right? So there's this portion of 69 highway that's being constructed right now should come online in about the latter part of 2019. That gets 6 miles south of the viaduct out there. The next 11 miles was shelved as a result of some poor planning by the state of Kansas. We made it. There's no two ways about this. In 2012, we chose to exempt businesses like mine from paying any income tax, and we reduced the taxes on our citizens on their income tax. We did that hoping that oil and gas would continue to produce at $4 a gallon or $120 a barrel, and things didn't work out. OPEC put a lot of crude on the market, and the price went down. So that didn't happen, and we took away that revenue source. And when you talk about revenues on the government level, state government level, that means taxes. So when we took the revenue from 350,000 businesses like ours, we didn't pay any state income tax for 3 or 4 years. It put us in this position, and that project out there on 69 got shelved. That's what happened. We got 6 miles constructed. Now we have to finish the job. I don't know when the Cherokee County portion is going to come back online. It's really not even, so that's in around the Baxter Springs area, connecting to I-44. But I'll talk about the 11 miles. The new governor did say in 2019, he told the 3 of us, or 4 of us, I think it was the 3 of us, that and so did Richard Carlson told us that in the meeting. We had a Highway 69 group up at the KDOT boardroom, and he said it's still slated for 2019. It's about $55 million and an $8 billion budget, or however you want to look at our budget. Sometimes it's 2 years, sometimes it's 1. It doesn't seem like a lot of money, but it is of vital importance, and all of these folks on this panel continue to make sure that project gets built. And I think it will be on the front burner of the next T-Works program, which I say T-Works, that's the next transportation program. That's what this 10-year program was called. However, which was from 2010 to 2020. But it doesn't end. There's no expiration date for T-Works, so it can continue and hopefully still be on the front burner.
Tax cuts in 2012 caused the highway funding not to occur for 69. That was one element of it, but I call it the perfect storm. Okay, there were tax cuts, but the problem was we continued to increase spending. Our legislators, majority of legislators, not myself, I'm not sure, they voted to continue to increase spending. $100 million plus to K through 12 schools and other entities. So you're cutting taxes, you're increasing spending. What are you going to get? A disaster. And so we're looking at some issues facing our state right now. The federal tax cuts has helped us. Look how the economy's starting to boom. The attitude is so positive. We're going in the right direction.